in order to really create a new category of devices, those devices are going to have to be far better at doing some key tasks. They're going to have to be far better at doing some really important things. Better than the laptop, better than the smartphone. And we'd like to show it to you today for the first time. And we call it the iPad. So, let me show it to you now. This is what it looks like.
And here's what it can do. What you just watched was a keynote delivered by Steve Jobs at Apple's annual Worldwide Developer Conference on January 27, 2010, where the first Apple iPad was introduced. Steve does a great job of explaining what the iPad experience is all about. He goes on to state that for a tablet to be necessary in this market, it needs to perform tasks better than a computer and a smartphone. Some of these tasks are browsing the internet, enjoying your email, having your photos and videos at your fingertips, playing your music collection, playing games, and for reading ebooks. Now I'd just like to give you a brief overview of what the iPad is and how it functions. As you can see here, this is an original iPad, the iPad 1. This is a substitute for a computer, as with a computer you have a mouse and a keyboard. And here with the iPad, all you need is the touch of a finger. Now tablets tend to stay away from physical buttons, but on the iPad there are a few. As you can see here, we have the volume buttons, the mute button, and then on top here we have the sleep-wake button. So it's all packaged into one sleek and slim device. As for the hardware, there's an HD display, a full touchscreen, there's built-in Wi-Fi, cameras, both front-facing and back-facing. It's lightweight, easy to transport, there's Bluetooth connectivity built in, and there's an on-screen keyboard. As for some of the software on the iPad, there's a mobile web browser, there's an ebook reader, there's an app store for downloading apps and games, there's a media player for your music collection, there's an email client for messaging, there's video conferencing, there's built-in onboard flash memory, and there's cloud connectivity. In terms of who's using iPads these days, well, there's a wide variety. Schools have adapted iPads in the classroom. Some schools have even gone as far as replacing their library's books with actual iPads. Many businesses are using iPads now, not only to help increase productivity in their businesses, but also as a form of payment, where credit cards can be swiped through a third-party attachment. Aside from those two main uses, the everyday person is using an iPad for whatever they deem necessary, such as reading a book, or maybe even watching a movie on a long trip. And they're even using iPad's built-in camera to record video and take photo of their loved ones. As Steve Jobs said, it is a computer and a smartphone combined into one single and easy-to-use device. What you're looking at here is a chart of each iPad that's come out from 2010 to 2012, and I'd just like to point out a few things. With the original iPad, which came out in April of 2010, you could see that the CPU was a 1 gigahertz Apple A4 processor. The screen resolution was 1024 by 768, which is an HD display. The memory was 256 megabytes, and most notable, there was no cameras, neither front nor rear. On the iPad 2, which was released almost a year later in March 2011, they upgraded the CPU to an Apple A5. The screen resolution stayed the same. The memory was upgraded to 512 megabytes, and there were two cameras placed on the iPad, both front and rear. Moving to the iPad 3, which was released another year later in March 2012, the CPU was upgraded to an Apple A5X. And finally, we have here the Apple Retina display, which is 2048 by 1536. You can also see that the memory was upgraded to 1 gigabyte, and you can see that both the cameras were improved. And then the iPad 4, which was released later that year in November of 2012, they upgraded the CPU to an Apple A6X. The screen resolution stayed the same. The memory as well stayed the same, and both the cameras stayed the same. And also take note that the Bluetooth has changed throughout all four of these. And with the iPad 4 with Bluetooth 4 coming from the original iPad, which started out with Bluetooth 2.1 plus EDR. Here we have a chart of the iPad mini and iPad Air. Starting with the iPad mini, which was released in November of 2012. Started with an A5 processor. Its screen resolution was 1024 by 768, so still an HD display. The memory was 512 megabytes, and there were cameras on both sides. Then, in November of 2013, both the iPad Air and the iPad Mini 2 were released. The most notable upgrades for that were was the display, which was changed over to the Retina display. In October of 2014, Apple released the iPad Mini 3 and the iPad Air 2. Not only did they have the Retina display, but they both had the Touch ID that Apple invented. Although the iPad has given the world some unbelievable technology, I really do foresee that the market for the tablet will diminish over the next decade. Apple's going to continue to produce great iPads, as are other companies going to produce great tablets. But when you have something such as the iPhone 6 Plus, which is their newest model, it's almost half the size of the iPad Mini, yet it can do just about everything the iPad can do, if not more, and it can all fit in your pocket. So I really do see that, regardless of the technology that comes out with these newer iPads, I think that the need for them will diminish, and eventually the tablet market will become obsolete.
It's a long road when you're on your own, and it hurts when they tear your dreams apart. In